Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Savor, Food, and Body. Today, you are in for a treat. Last season, season 2, I kind of started approaching on the topic of intimacy, body image, and sex with Dr. Alexandra. I will put a link to that in the show notes. But I wanted to continue this conversation even more because it comes up so often in my work with women around just body confidence and body image and bodies changing in midlife and all of this. So I was recently introduced to Amy Keller, our guest today, and she has so many great analogies and stories to, I think, really help us understand this connection between body image and sexuality and midlife changes. So Amy Keller is an intimacy coach who helps people connect and have playful relationships with love lives they love. She became the intimacy professional she couldn't find by creating solutions to conventional talk therapy or pills. Amy offers real solutions for real people in real relationships. She's written the book on intimacy called The Huddle: How to Score in Sex and Love. She's also a memorable speaker, which you will get a taste of today, including her epic TEDx talk, Better Intimacy for Better Sex, with over 1 million views. Amy Keller wants everybody to stop fighting and feel the love connection. And we will talk about that more in our conversation. So Amy, thank you so much for being here today. I'm just excited to dive in and learn from you today.
Thanks for having me. Loving this already.
So let's just start with help people get to know you a little bit more. Like, what's your story? Like, why did you become an intimacy coach?
Because I was married to a man that I loved so much, but he wasn't fantastic in the bedroom. As a matter of fact, he had health issues that stood in the way of him standing all the way up, if you know what I'm saying. So I was like, I don't care. I love all of him. He's sexy from head to toe. That's a brilliant, powerful man, just my type. Ooh, I loved the way he squeezed me and was always touching me and loving me up. And he was intellectually stimulating. He just loved me just as I am. And then we got married. And then you fall into this rut and you're like, why aren't you squeezing anymore? Where's the loving connection? Where's my great sex? Hello. And he's an older man. And we did the traditional thing that you do. We went to couples therapy, watching my husband on the hot seat while the therapist is talking to him about his childhood and trying to talk about feelings. I'm like, this is not sexy. This is not what he needs. And this is not in a form that is comfortable or right for him. How is this supposed to help us have great sex? Even when she did ask him about our sex life, he was like, I guess. And she was like, she skipped it. She went right to childhood trauma, not sexy at all. We left there. We felt awful. We argued. We went to go see a sex therapist. The sex therapist told us to go home and give each other massages. Are you kidding me? I'm a masseuse. Who doesn't want to be touched by me? He's awkward. He literally didn't know how to finish the job, so he didn't want to start something he couldn't finish. I love that man. I could see the toll it was taking on him. So I'm like, I don't want to hate you. I want to love you for the rest of my life. And I divorced the man I loved. That's crazy. Before that, we went to the best sex doctor in Beverly Hills. My husband is a capable man. We were able to go wherever we wanted. So we went to the best sex doctor in Beverly Hills, who's talking about pills, pumps, and injections. He's talking about orgasms and this. And I was like, what? I was crying. I wanted to make love with my husband. I wanted to feel close. I wanted to feel playful. I wanted to have erotic adventures and a love life that we both looked forward to. I know that's not relevant to having an erection. As I used to say to him earlier in life, I was in art school. I've been with women. It doesn't, come on, honey, let's get kinky. But he was terrified, as many people are. So after we got divorced, I was like, you know what? We're not the only people dealing with erectile dysfunction. or dealing with somebody who doesn't know what to do in the bedroom, because even when we could help him, he still didn't know what to do. He was overwhelmed with it. I'm like, oh, come on, get creative.
But I'm going
So
to ask you too, right there, like the
yeah.
performance thing. Like
Ugh,
guys have, again, another one of those cultural narratives of like the
ugh.
guy's got to perform. So,
Well,
because it sounds like that's kind of where that sex therapist was coming from. Like, here, let me help the guy perform. Like,
ugh. And I talk about that performance pressure, stage fright, both cause adrenaline. And the way I say that is adrenaline is a dick killer. Uh-huh. And it's also a libido killer. Stress is adrenaline. So that's certainly not helping. We're not here to perform. So how do we get somebody who helps us get comfortable? Like, even if it's a performance and you were on stage, the way you get comfortable being on stage to give that performance is through practice. You show up for practices. We have rehearsals. We know these moves. We practice them together so that if something goes wrong on stage, which is bound to happen, because live theater is like that, we know what to do so that the show goes on. That's the important part. That's why I describe it like a dance, even a tango. Once they start together in the abrazo, which is where they come together for that first move, and in that move, they drop the outside world and agree to do this give and take, push and pull. It's not all about one. It's not all about the other. It's a push and pull, and they agree to be in that push and pull. And even though it looks like they're in it together, they're each in it for themselves. And that takes practice to make it look like an art. And that's why I say that, couples are trying to work on it, but what they actually need is to learn how to play together.
yeah, I think that's
Uh-huh.
so important. And how body image gets wrapped up in that ability to play, and like how body image gets wrapped up into the stage fright, especially as bodies are changing. I don't know if your ex-husband, like, was that something that was part of your relationship, his medical problems, if that was there in the beginning, or was it part of his body naturally changing and that's something that you had to work through?
For me, that was there from the very beginning, but I've helped thousands and thousands and thousands of couples through all kinds of things. I even work with the spinal cord injury at the hospitals. So one of the stories that I'll share on that is a super hot couple in their late 50s, a biker couple, like, ugh, and the leathers like that. They had it going. They'd been together for like 30 years. And he got in a biking accident. And now he's a quadriplegic. But as I said, his body completely changed, but he was still able to smell. He was still able to eat and taste things. So to me, those are his senses. So he was still a sensual being. So we were able to find pleasure spots in his body so that they had ways to still stay together. So I say to people, your body's changed and you're worried about a little bit of flab. but that comfort in your body is what's sexy. I am an older, juicy woman. People like, why are you so sexy? Because I'm completely comfortable in my body. I'm not trying to hide it. I love it. It's part of who I am. I know how to use it. I know its limitations. I know which parts to cover. So it's it's that comfort in your body. So when body image changes, and I'm going to bring this one up. Sometimes I hear from people and they say, I'm not attracted to my partner. So this is what it sounds like. When a man comes to me, he says, I'm not attracted to her anymore. When a woman comes to me, when she's not attracted to her partner, it's usually because his physical has changed also. He's let himself go, or he's let his hygiene go, or he's stopped interesting her. He's delivering the same old pizza. And she's like, I'm not attracted to that anymore. Even when he brings me that thing I'm supposed to love, which is pizza. We all love pizza. She's literally like, I cannot taste that. I can't. I cannot eat another piece of him. And I'll go, okay, it's time to just change up the menu. It's time to enjoy each other in a whole new way. So when he comes and she's saying, she doesn't want sex, she has a low libido. Libido, coming to you, is another word for sexual appetite. So when somebody, even a woman, comes to me and she's going, my libido is low, I'm like, it's just because you're not in the mood for the sex that you're having because it's boring or it doesn't taste good. Let's find what you're interested in. And I talk about how women have been cut off from their pleasure for a really long time.
So long.
Yeah. And I know you talk about food, so can I share a story? I have in my book, The Huddle, I have a story, and it's complete. My stories are all based on truth, but the names have been changed, but this one has not. It was my daughter's 12th birthday party. She's got 12 girlfriends sleeping over for their 12th birthday party. This very thin Asian girl. In the morning, I cut up muffins, and she takes her quarter of the muffin. She takes one bite out of it, puts it down and says, oh, I really shouldn't. At age 12, all of these girls started going, and I could see it rolling through the group as they wanted to put their muffins down and go, oh, body image stuff. And I went right over and saw this as an opportunity to go, oh, no, you don't. Oh, no, you don't. No, this is where you start cutting yourself off from pleasure or from what you want or what's in front of you. This is a message that is sent to girls. If this was 12-year-old boy party, mothers would be going, eat, you're growing. And I said, so are you.
Exactly. Yep.
And girls are taught to be small and not take up any space and not make any noise. And boys are taught to show up in the world. You go out there and you practice on that field. Make sure that they see you. Man spread on that seat. Use your voice. Speak up when you want something. And I'm like, we ate those muffins going, and I want crumbs falling from your face. I want you to like, And I said, that's how you enjoy a muffin.
It's true, though. I mean, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, because that is about the age, about the time also that puberty is. And it's such a double-edged sword for women and girls because we're told to be small or maintain a small figure. But then also the other images that we get about women is they're hypersexualized, but only in a certain way that they look. But then they're damned if they show too much of their body too. So it's such just a confusing world too, I think.
I'm here to simplify, if I may.
Yes, please.
I'm going to share that piece because you just said that about showing your body. So I say this to people because I see people go, I'm feeling empowered, and they went and did a nude photo shoot. Or I want to feel good in my body, so I'm going to go do boudoir photos. But that is still, oh gosh, tell me how you feel about this. That's still about the gaze of someone else.
Bingo.
Yeah, okay. Good, because I was afraid you were going to go, but so I still feel that way. And that's the same thing that I say to that man who's saying that his wife doesn't know to turn him on anymore is, truth is, nobody's going to turn you on for a lifetime but you. And this is how you do it. Can I share it with you?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So turning yourself on for a lifetime means turning on your appetite. Your libido is your appetite, your sexual appetite. So I redefine sex. This is going to help too. Okay. I define sex as sharing sensual pleasure. Because that's the thing that's missing. We are like, what are we supposed to be doing here? What do you want? I don't know. What do you want? I don't know. I can also tell you why we do that. It's the same reason we don't want to pick what's for dinner. As we could go on for this forever. But when it comes to, where was I? I'm sorry.
You were gonna, we were gonna go through a technique or something. You
Oh,
said
yeah,
you
yeah,
were gonna
yes, yes,
yeah.
yes. I was going to tell you how to turn on your libido. And it's the same for that man over there who says that he's not attracted to his wife. It's his responsibility, not yours. You're never going to look like a girl in a picture. And that means that his eyes are turning him on because he's staring at porn and he thinks that images are what affect his penis, but it's not. No, no, no. Actually, it's causing himself trauma, but that's for a different conversation. So the way that you turn on your libido is to actually relax your body. And the way that your body knows that you're relaxed is when you tell it it is. So answer this question for me. Are you here? Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Are you okay? Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Are you willing? Mm-hmm. And that sound, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When you do it 3 times, mm-hmm. It regulates you. And when you get in touch with using the sound, you have access to your And the way you can really see that it affects your appetite is if you're, watching or listening to it with me, put a smile on your face. You can fake it. This is a good time to fake it, ladies. Put a smile on your face and make an over the top yummy sound. You see, it's hard to do. And you can feel your mouth start to get moist because your salivary glands start going. And when these glands start going, all of you starts going. So by making this sound with intention, you can use it to increase your appetite for pleasure. And you're also sharing your sensual pleasure, even if you're just eating and you're going, So if a woman is feeling like, where's my libido gone? If he's looking and going, why doesn't she turn me on anymore? I'd invite them to go get some ice cream. Get one ice cream, 2 spoons, and start sharing sensual pleasure. Like the other thing that's so wonderful about, I call this method the huddle, because men will understand that too. And I say it's the huddle that separates the outside world from the sanctity of the team. So even while they're eating that ice cream, if they're agreeing to, let's not talk, let's just, that's also the wonderful thing about that moment, about that huddle, about those 3 breaths that you take together, is that you're not talking. It gives him a moment to turn off his eyeballs, because this is what it does. So a lot of men have a hard time doing it. They're going, why am I having a hard time doing it? I'm going, because it turns off the fantasy in your head. So they no longer have that spinning message in their head. Why is it helping me? Which is what women, and I'll say, because it's turning off all those messages in her head that going, huh? It's turning on that language of pleasure. And that's what we're here for. That's what's missing from our lives and from our love lives, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And what I see too comes up with a lot of my clients is, if they've had past trauma, and I think you brought this up with one of your client examples in your TED talk too, where the woman had just had a lot of sexual trauma, unwanted advances, things like that. And so that can start to send off a lot of those tapes and narratives of like pushing back, putting on the brakes. And if we simplify that and bring it down into those, like you said, those 3 questions that you asked, and if a woman can't answer to one of those, then that helps point like, okay, there's maybe some work to do in her own therapy, trauma-informed therapy, whatever.
Nah.
But it takes it away from, it takes the responsibility off of him though, and takes the responsibility off of her of feeling damaged.
Oh, yeah. And, we come together to heal. And I am a trauma therapist. So I've done all the trauma therapy training. What I realize is in your intimate relationship is where we heal. So when I work with couples who have trauma, or one of them has trauma, what I see happen with women with trauma, love, care, is that when it comes to actual sex, that there'll be a point where she goes, "Okay, go," and she's checked out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and that partner who feels like they're there alone and they feel guilty they feel like they're hurting her, understandably. So it's usually the partner who comes to me and goes, "Well, what do I do?" And as they huddle and as they keep going, it's reminding her, I use my hand because sorry, it's reminding her that I choose to be here. I'm here. I'm okay. I'm willing. I do want to be here. If at some point she stops or goes, they back up 2 steps and just stay with that sound. If they're in the middle of sex and she has a moment where she checks out and goes to trauma, that's that checkout. It happens. If they're in the middle of sex and he has the moment where he checks out to porn, which is his trauma, it happens. This gives them a tool that they would use where one or the other of them puts their hand on their chest or their other partner's chest and goes, which means come back to me. Come back to connection. No shame, no blame, no having to go to big trauma therapy to talk about it, because these things change by feeling safe in connection. So I've seen people who've been going to trauma therapists and working on it and talking about it for years and years and years, but they're still frozen when it comes to the action with their partner, because this is the heat of the moment. I have a husband who would complain to me because he couldn't put his hand on his wife when they were in the car because of a trauma that happened to her when she was younger. Right. So now they huddle together. They do it just 3 times because it connects her with the no words, makes him feel safe. The physical connection it helps them both. It's the vibration, choosing it to do together. And then they started by holding hands, and then they would hold hands in the car. Then they held hands where she could put the hand on her lap. Then she could be held in the car when that sound. Because she now programmed her brain to say, means I'm here. I choose to be with you. This is my partner. I'm not in a state of trauma. Because when you're in a state of trauma, you might go, but then you're also letting everybody around you know, and that's good too. That's how you speak up for yourself, right?
Yeah. No, and I like what the other thing that's coming up for me too, as you're saying that, is it's this whole nervous system response too. And like you mentioned, like the vibrations that come with that, not let alone like the taking the deep breaths together. And you can't be in that relaxed state, the rest, digest, feed, and breed. We can't be in that side of our nervous system without that feeling safe, without feeling connected to the present moment, and not, spiraling back into the trauma or disassociating back into the trauma.
Exactly. And the sound works for men. It works for women. When I find somebody and go and make a sound and they go, it doesn't have a rhythm. You can't connect to it. But when somebody's going, or even if they're going, when I'm dealing with a hard day and I just walk around going, because it still keeps me regulated. And I also talk about how this helps us show up with a partner who's angry too. When somebody's angry, it's because they're not consistent. But if they're angry and they're like, you can feel them and you feel safe. You're like, okay, you're angry. What's going on? But it's when you can't feel them and you know it, they're not letting it out. That's when it's like, how do you respond to it?
Yeah.
So it's a good way to express emotions too, because people talk about emotional intelligence. And this too, because when we're in that rest and digest place, we can digest our food and also our emotions. Mhm.
Yeah, I love that.
So having this tool gives you immediate access to that, as I call it, the dial tone for the nervous system. So when I deal with that big angry guy, and I go, no matter what's coming up, when you don't know what to say or what to do, just exhale, go, works. It works.
Yeah. Yeah. And so easy and so accessible.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
you started to bring up another point too, that so in my work, I see, and not that I'm helping people in their relationships, but I'm hearing about the disconnect in their relationships.
Mm,
And that often ends up translating into a disconnection with food too. Like you mentioned in your TED talk, something about the loss of intimacy can lead partners to becoming like roommates and can lead to taking up late night rendezvous with Ben and Jerry. I mean, that when I heard that, like this is it, ladies. See, this is where we're coming from here. And so then we end up kind of with this double whammy of like, we've got body image challenges because bodies are changing in midlife. And if there's this lack of emotional intimacy, I mean, that's really what we're talking about here with that, and try to come back to be in the present, be connected, stop disassociating when possible. We're coming into the present so you can develop emotional intimacy with your
right.
person.
We talk about how we want our partners to be more vulnerable and more emotional with us. So, because we're women and we use words, we want to take them to therapy so that they can learn to be emotional with using words the same way that we do. But that's not fair. That's not fair. They don't use emotional words. Men use 90% of the language in business because they talk about things they feel confident about. They're happy to shoot out their stats of their sports teams. So when I get men to understand how to deal with her emotions is to go, she's sad. I don't want you to label it. Don't look and go, you seem sad, because that's what a therapist would want you to do. And no matter what you try to say, you will be wrong. And men know this. That's why I'm here, because this isn't working and it's mean. It's mean to try and get men to go, well, you seem sad. I'm not sad. I'm mad. Okay. Like whatever he says is going to be wrong.
Yeah.
So what I get him to do, and this is why it works, is because I get him to look at her and go and emulate the sound that she would be putting out. Oh, oh, honey, you tell me. Then you're speaking to her in the vibration that's coming out and letting her do the thing she loves, which is use words. Tell me one thing that's bothering you. I like to tell men that. Tell me one thing that's bothering you, because otherwise he's under a shambles. And do you want me to listen? Is there something I can help you with? Is there something you can help with? No. Is there something you want to tell me that's just get it off your chest? Oh, yes, tell me one thing. So he can hear it, take it in. And even then I teach him, don't label it. Don't tell her what she's feeling. And that's what therapists are trying to get you to do. So how do you feel about that? Well, how did that make you feel? That will not make a man feel, that'll make a man feel the same as I would feel if he asked me a question about my taxes. I did. So if you just say, how did that make you feel? Give me a grunt. Then you know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's also really vulnerable when we do that together. People go, God, that's really hard to do together. It's because that's a vulnerable action that speaks more than words could ever say. And as the coach, people get to practice with me. So in my program, they practice with me, they learn a few moves, they practice with each other. And just like being on stage or being on a football team, they're like throwing the ball back and forth. I teach in a way that people can hear. So, there's tons of information out there for women, but men understand sports. And if they were throwing a ball back and forth, they wouldn't go, hey, Joe, I'm going to throw the ball. I'm going to throw it really hard. Are you ready? No, he'd go, hey.
Yeah.
Because that's how we really communicate.
So then, and you've given lots of advice already, but What advice do you have for women in midlife who want to re-spark, say, a roommate stuck sex life?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. I have a 3-step plan that will restart your sex life. And this is the basis of my whole program. But it is literally this: plan, practice, play. Mhm. So, yeah. And plan is, we get into a relationship and you expect that intimacy to happen automatically. We're going to just, it's all going to just happen automatically. I joke, I say that's like getting on a sports team and not having practices or games and expecting to win the Super Bowl. So actually these things do take practice. So we have to go every this. So you have to plan what night it's going to be. So if you want to change it from roommates and you want to plan now, say, honey, in 3 days, let's do this. Let's start with let's start by sitting next to each other. Let's go back to back and huddle. Let's get Amy's book, The Huddle, for a few bucks on Amazon and try the exercises that are in here. I mean, they're literally like how to explore sensually, how to touch each other's hands, how to make sounds and go, ooh, I want more of that. So I would say, look forward to it. So plan. Anticipation is the best aphrodisiac. So Friday night, we're going to get back to it. We're going to start with a little hand touching game. We're going to learn how to pull each other's hair. We're going to learn how to huddle together. We're going to learn how to plan this every week so that we can start exploring each other for the rest of our lives. So, and plan for it and then practice. So you're going to say, this is what we're going to try. Let's try hand exercise where I'm going to blindfold you and I'm going to chew all these things to your hands. Who knows? Just literally make it up. Pick one body part and make it simple. And then set a timer. That's my favorite. Set a timer for 3 minutes, 3 whole minutes. Certainly you can get your partner to do a 3-minute exercise with you. And then use that timer so that you're going to scratch their hand, slap it, maybe put an ice cube in it, put chewed candy in it, make it sticky. Who knows? Just get creative on their hand for 3 minutes. Certainly you can do that. Huddle into it, say their name into it, play, have fun, give it a massage, pull on their fingers. 3 whole minutes. And then after that exercise, go, oh, that was kind of fun. Do it to me. And that's how I'd say. And then at the end of it, go, okay, that was it. Let's have a glass of wine and do it again in a few days so that you have something to look forward to. And right at that end of that one, you are setting forward the next one. I have a whole dialogue. I take my couples through my program through. And that's learning how to share appreciations and know what you want next and stay curious for a lifetime so that you keep growing together. But even if you're just going, let's do this again in a few days, that's how you start having things that you look forward to.
Which I think is so important in this midlife space because there's so much else can be pretty chaotic going on in life. And so having like this one thing, this one practice that is not only grounding yourselves in your relationship, but it's I use the term self-nourishing all the time, with my clients, like, what is a self-nourishing practice that we're going to work on this week?
Yeah.
And that could be one of them. Yeah.
I love that. And in my program, I have the weekly coaching, and I love that because the feedback I've gotten from my clients over all these years is that it starts to fall apart because once it's over, once that workshop is over, once they leave therapy, how do they keep it incorporating? So I show up for people no matter what. So if things are good, it's like, show up because I'm going to give you a new exercise. And if things are bad, you don't have to go, should we call somebody? What do we do? We're stuck. You're never stuck.
Yeah.
Things are good, go away. You want to come back? I'm right here to go. This is where you start. This is how you get back into it. You had these issues that came up, whether they're body, whether they're betrayal. Fouls happen to even the best teams. It's
Yeah.
knowing how to stay together. And the reason that Joe is still part of the team after he dropped the ball in the Super Bowl, I say that all the time. They finally got to the Super Bowl and Joe dropped the ball. I mean, seriously, if that was a couple, you'd go, oh God, I never want to see my partner again. I've ruined everything. I'm going to be mad at him forever. But because they have a ritual, they have a practice. They know how to drop those things and they know how to grow from them. They have a coach who's always in their corner, helping them like an offense and a defense. Learn to play together. That's why I see myself as a real coach. And when they learn to play together, because they can't hash it out themselves, people say, we're going to figure it out. You can't figure it out. You're the offense and the defense. You need a coach, somebody who really sees you as a team and wants the best for each of you and both of you.
Yeah.
And they both speak a different language. So I've, you know, that's why I help them. I talk about an intimacy game plan. So what advice do you have? That's what I call about an intimacy game plan. So when you're doing that 3-minute exercise, the way you build your plan is you like, ooh, he liked it when I said his name into his hand. Joe, believe me, he will. So try it. Or you will. So have him try it on you. And then put that down on your list as, oh, this was a good thing. This worked. And that's how you start your plan. So that when you're going, what do we want today? Just like going to the kitchen, you can go to the pantry and go, ooh, let's pull this out of the freezer. Let's make something. You can have a list to look through and you're like, she liked that hand thing. She liked the feather up her back. She likes the fork thing that we tried. She loved when I laid on her in that way. You have someplace to go to and someplace to grow. So I like it.
Right.
So yeah, if you want to spark that roommate stuck in your sex life, start planning it. Go next week. I'm going to do this to you. And then at the end of that encounter, say, ooh, I want you to do that to me on Saturday. That's how you start to get what you want.
And I love through really for this whole conversation, just to reiterate for people, is that we're not talking about how to get the best orgasms or have the best sex of your life per se. I love what you're saying about your strategies in that they're very simple. They're way before you even get to like what would we say, the encore, if we will, or like you say, get to the Super Bowl. It's all of these steps that have to happen first to build that intimacy, to build
to
that
build the skills.
connection. Yeah. And then, as I'm thinking about people's bodies changing and life circumstances changing and all this change that happens in midlife, when we have those skills, those fundamentals, which would be fundamentals in sports too, or like fundamental cooking skills, you can make anything. You can
Right.
play anything. And so no matter what changes are coming in your life, in your body, you can go back to those basics, go back to those fundamentals and go, okay, we're learning how to connect with each other in this here and now space. This is not what we were in our 20s or 30s, 40s, whatever. We're learning now, but we have the skills to help us learn and connect now. And that's really what I
Absolutely.
love about your approach, or what I'm hearing about your
Yeah.
approach anyway.
So I want to say two things on that. One of them is, we're not talking about orgasms, but at the same time, when you can tap into your line of pleasure, you can allow yourself to have orgasms, and you can use that same sound to help you have orgasms. Just I say that to people all the time. At the end of the orgasm, they're all going, uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. Well, that sound also gets the action started.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I hadn't thought about this before till, when I've watched your TED Talk and then to you just started describing it again today. But when Harry met Sally, have you seen this?
Of course. I'll have what
Uh-huh.
she's having.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, that is a classic, really like visual experience of exactly what you're talking about. And for folks that haven't watched that movie or haven't watched it in a long time, it's actually kind of refreshing to go back and watch it again, because that whole movie is about their talking, their relationship, their connection, this connection building over time. And it's very, I found it, I just watched it maybe a few months ago, and I'm like, oh, this is so different than what we see in
Mm.
relationships and sexuality in the media, in the movies these days. It seems like it's way more about like, okay, get to the Super Bowl quickly, like in 5 minutes. Like, talk about performance anxiety on both sides.
And a large part of the reason why people aren't able to is because that's a control. Like having an orgasm is a loss of control. So for a lot of people, they're like, I'm not giving you that moment. I don't feel safe enough to give you that moment.
Yes.
Uh-huh. So there's that, and then back, you were talking about this age of life, and that it's not like in our 20s. Thank goodness. In our 20s, a wind went by and it was like, oh, I'm on fire. And I look at older, as we're older, the word I use is smoldering. Is when we're smoldering. And as we're older, I consider it my responsibility, and I don't have a partner, so I'm sharing that for a reason, but I consider it my responsibility to keep my coals glowing, to keep my embers lit. That's my sensuality, and being aware of what turns my senses on. What makes me go, ooh, I love that shirt. I love that color. I know what I want to eat. Oh, I like that. Oh, I don't like that. That's my access to my, That's how I keep my smolder alive. Oh.
I love that. Yeah, I love it. And we were just talking, before we push record, we were talking about, the parallels between smoldering and savoring. And really, like, both of them involve And, when we can have kind of that visual of, even if someone is alone, they're not partnered, or they're working on just like learning to respect and enjoy and have pleasure in their body for themselves, then thinking about that, what keeps them smoldering, what keeps those coals glowing, even without another person. And I think this kind of ties back to what you said about, people, and we see this on social media all the time. They're feeling their oats in the body positivity space, and now we're going to go take all of the bikini shots and the boudoir and all of that. But again, like, who are we doing that for? Versus this idea of this smoldering and thinking about your lit coals. That's an inside job, as I'm understanding it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love that word savoring, because if you need to go, well, how do I savor? How do I turn myself on? What is she talking about? I would ask you to think about that meal that you still think about that makes you go, or that time that sexual encounter that you had that makes you go, ooh. Think about some experience, because it's always an experience that, and keep thinking about that. Turn on music that makes you want to get up and move your body. Eat things that make you want more of it. And you'll notice that the more you make the sound, the more you enjoy the things around you. And remember the things around you. So it increases your memory. It increases the quality of your enzymes and neurotransmitters. There's a lot of science behind it.
Yeah. And then there's no space for the shame. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I shouldn't be eating this. Oh, I shouldn't have, been enjoying that. Like,
Yeah.
you can't be shoulding and umming at the same time. You just
Right.
can't.
And yeah, and on that same note about body image and that ming, so much of it is women wearing lingerie and super uncomfortable clothes. How are you supposed to so you're still, it's like, don't I look hot? But you feel this is not pleasurable. You're not feeling pleasure in your body. So, I have girlfriends who are models and absolutely gorgeous, and I come in all jiggly, and it's like men will come up to me like a flies. And she's like, how do you do that? Why?
Yeah.
Because totally comfortable in my body, and my embers are lit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't let anybody just warm their marshmallows on my embers. And that's empowerment. That's what empowerment
Yes.
is knowing what you want,
Yeah.
knowing what you like, being able to ask for it, being able to receive it, being able to enjoy it. That's empowerment, don't you think?
Absolutely. Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I spend every conversation that I have with women is that if I can teach them how to, again, basket basics, savor food, savor, enjoy moving your body, it's
Yeah.
going to trickle into all these other areas of their life. Do they like the relationship that they're in? How do they want to change it? Are they feeling limited in their sexual experiences? How do they want to change it? Do they like their job, their career? How do you want to change that? But when we can start with the basics of like, how do you feed yourself every day? It
I
ends up
love it.
trickling into all this other stuff, which is why, I wanted to be having conversations like this on the podcast because guess what? This is the body and food piece also.
I love that. And when women are really cut off, I tell them, what do you love to eat? Go eat it. Oh no, I really
Yeah.
shouldn't. Yeah, let yourself. What happened if
Yeah.
you didn't shame yourself for your pleasure? Just for one day. I'm not telling you to gorge yourself for the next year, but what if you let yourself, what have I, and I do dark chocolate, and when I eat it, I'm like,
Yeah.
right? So if you
Yeah.
allow yourself to fully enjoy what, your
Yeah.
food,
Yeah.
that's the basic sensual pleasure that we start to cut ourselves off from. And it's
Absolutely.
also the easiest one to start going, And in a restaurant, if you saw the food and went, everybody would look because you've sparked everybody else's interest. So as I say, this is also how you turn on your partner.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, Amy, this has been wonderful and so many great advice. I mean, so many great tips, things for us to think about for sure. Where can people learn more about your work? Or you mentioned that you have a course. Where would you like to send people? I will definitely put links to like your TED Talk and the book and things like that. Where else would you like to send people?
Thank you. You can go to amycolor.com, and that's COLOR, like red, yellow, blue. And you'll find links in there to my intimacy game plan. And it's an application program. And I love that because it's fully supportive and people get to talk with me. So they know that it's the right program or that I'm the right person to work with. Because I also know that when you're dealing with intimacy issues, talking to the wrong person or hiring the wrong person can be a detriment. So I make sure that people feel comfortable before they even begin. I want people to feel confident. So
That's so
amycolor.com, you can find me everywhere right here.
perfect. Awesome. Well, I highly recommend folks go and listen to the TED Talk, read the book, and get started on finding your mm-hmm. So
Mm-hmm.
thanks so much for being here, Amy.
Thank you so much for having me.